This is now the second time that we've seen this particular kind of blend and profile, so I thought it would only be appropriate to do a little bit of a side-by-side here. So the original release. The first time this was done was in Redoutable, which was Exceptional Cask Selection Mark XV. So Mark XV versus Mark XXVIII. This was released from barrel in September of 2020, and this was released from barrel in October of 2024. 4 years apart, even as far as distillation, maturation, both of them 14 years of age. One of the rums used is 14 years entirely in ex-bourbon barrel, and the other rum used was 14 years entirely in Madeira cask. Now we know, because of how Richard and Foursquare works, that there's also blends of double retort pot still and twin column coffee still in here in different proportions depending upon what they're looking for. So everything in here has been in those casks for a minimum of 14 years, which is the same as you would find in an age statement for Scotch whiskey or for bourbon. So we're looking at 14 years though, in the tropics, so in tropical maturation. And at Foursquare, they have open-walled warehouses, so really allowing the really unique Barbadian climate, which is high humidity and high temperature, to impose its will upon these casks all year round. Open walls, 80 degrees Fahrenheit, roughly 11 months out of the year, and little day to night shift. Those open walls also allow for really good airflow, which is going to create really beautiful oxidative notes. So your nutty characteristics, even sherry-like notes. So the fact that we're looking at ex-bourbon and ex-madeira here, that Madeira is going to bring some of those more oxidative characteristics that you'd expect. Those nutty notes, the chocolatey notes, the leathery notes, some of those aspects. But the fact that you're looking at that tropical maturation in these two different types, wildly different. You would find if we were aging this in the United States or in Scotland or in Europe, anywhere else. Redoutable versus Convocation. By the labels, these things look very similar, right? Blend of two different 14-year rums, each ex-bourbon and ex-madeira, all distilled at the Foursquare Rum Distillery and all aged on island in Barbados. No color, no sugar, no flavoring, no filtration. Bottled at cask strength, which 62% ABV here and 61% ABV here. Redoutable, which means formidable. Let's do a side-by-side and see what we get. On Convocation, very bright acetone characteristics, very fruit-forward, good citrus notes, very good caramelized pineapple-y notes. The nose on Redoutable is much more perfumey in the sense of it's almost more ethanol, but there's also a bit more of, the acetone is a brighter, sharper acetone note. This is like a round cherry acetone, and some people find acetone as a tasting note somewhat off-putting. I don't. To me, it is just the aroma that my brain pulls for that particular nosing note. But the acetone, as I was mentioning here, this is much more fruity with a leather back end to it, if I was going to summarize that quickly. And here, this is much more perfumey and a bit sharper. I'm going to start here and let this continue to air out in the glass. So on the Redoutable, again, very bright. There's more lemon versus orange. I'd say there's also a bit more tropical florals here. There's a little bit more of almost, I don't want to say hay, but like a lemongrass. There is a honeysuckle aspect to the Redoutable. On the palate, bright, sharp, very punchy. I will say, as I was about to take the sip, I also got almost like a peach kind of characteristic to it. This one is very bright, very like sharp, very middle palate. I almost say like, this is like an arrow being fired straight down the center of the palate, hitting from the, like near the back and then coming straight through to the tip of my tongue. Much bigger, rounder, more residual sweetness on it, on the palate. This has much more of the dark tobacco, intense. I keep coming back to like chocolate-covered figs and chocolate-covered dates. There's a lot of those like layers of rich, dark cocoa and chocolate on Convocation. Whereas the irony is, like, when I was first tasting Convocation, I got a ton of brightness out of it, and that's what I found so surprising. Lots of citrus, lots of berry. But side by side with the Redoutable is much brighter, much punchier. Whereas Convocation is rounder, it's more mellowed, it just feels more integrated as a whole, which is amazing to consider, because honestly, Redoutable was one of my absolute favorite releases of Foursquare. I personally bought 2 bottles that I have saved for the future because I loved this release so much. And again, this was only the second time in the history of the International Spirits Challenge for a rum to be awarded the Supreme Champion Spirits, which means it beat out all other spirits in the world, all other categories. So all of your Scotch whiskeys, your Japanese whiskeys, your brandies, your cognacs, your American whiskeys, everything else. Only the second time in the history of that competition that rum has taken home that particular award. The first time was also a release from Foursquare. The return to this particular kind of maturation breakdown, right? 2 single maturations, ex-bourbon and ex-madeira, both for 14 years. I was really excited for Convocation. Now having side-by-sided it with Redoutable, this is unreal. I think it's important to do the context, right? You got to go quickly back and forth because that's where you're going to get the most kind of differentiation, right? What context am I tasting under? What has my palate been doing today? Yeah, good. The baking spice note is beautiful. It's there. This is more toffee, caramel. Convocation, more like dark chocolate covered toffee, like a salted caramel with berries on it. This is big, it's rich, but it is amazing to me. This is 1% higher in ABV, so this is 124 proof. So this is 124 proof versus 122. And this actually drinks more mellow, more round, more easy, more smooth, if you will. But man, that's an incredible release and really excited. So there you have it. Side-by-side tasting of Exceptional Cask Selection Mark XV Redoutable and Exceptional Cask Selection Mark XXVIII Convocation, both coming from the Foursquare Rum Distillery in Barbados, both 14 years of age, blend of 2 different single maturations, ex-bourbon and ex-madeira cask, all aging a minimum of 14 years in the tropics. No color, no sugar, no filtration, no additives, and both, honestly, worthy of the title exceptional, because these are exceptional spirits, not just exceptional rums. These are some of the best spirits I've ever had. Convocation is unreal. So there you have it. Convocation and Redoutable, Foursquare Exceptional Cask Selections. These rums are gorgeous. Cheers.